people. I finished a book. Not this one. I made another stab at this one. I read another 70 pages. I still got over 100 pages to go. James Davidson, fuck you, man. Whoever told this guy he could write, I don't know. This is what I finished. I don't know if that's even going to show up, but this is volume 4 of Gibbon's Rome. You read enough Gibbon, and when you're stuck on a shitty book like that, Courtesans and Fish Cakes, you kind of miss the style of Gibbon. You kind of miss his writing, even though it's long and drawn out. And I've got probably 200 pages here without any kind of notes, where it was, he's reviewing the laws of Rome and all the codes, and it was extremely boring. And at the end of this, he goes all the way back to Justinian and talks about all the fucking religious people, and we're back to the Arianism again, and people are back to killing each other because somebody called Mary the Mother of God, and that was too much like the Greek gods who had mothers and fathers. And anyways, let's get to it here. I got a few notes in here. The beginning of the book is just wonderful. I'm at page 49 here, and my note is Theodoric the Ostrogoth, king of Italy, and Italy kind of at the very tail end of the Western Roman Empire, kind of changes hands quite a bit, and every time they get a new boss, it's like meet the new boss, same as the old boss, and when somebody else moves in to take over the people of Italy, they kind of will rally to anybody's banner. They don't care whether they're fucking Roman or Gothic or the Lombards at the very end of the thing. The Lombards are kind of cool. Their real name was Langobard, which means the Longbeard. They were barbarians. Okay, we're at Justinian here. I'm at page 82. This is what my notes says. Gibbon laments the fact that much effort went into the silkworm. Yeah, they had secret embassies and spies, and apparently they even smuggled eggs from the silkworm. I don't know if it's a moth or a butterfly, but they even smuggled eggs in a hollowed out cane back to Constantinople so that they could begin cultivating them there. Instead of paying exorbitant prices to the Chinese for silk, they could manufacture their own. Gibbon laments the fact that much effort went into the silkworm from China, and not other things that the Chinese had, like the printing press. Many works that were still extant but are now gone may have been saved, and I like Gibbon's attitude there. There was books laying around on shelves at that time that are now totally gone, or they only exist because somebody else has copied a couple of quotes from it or something, and that's the way it goes. Myself, I would say, yeah, that books are much more important than a silk shirt. My note here on page 98 says, Gibbon never ceases to surprise. Gibbon is speaking of the architecture of St. Sophia in Constantinople, and I'm supposed to read something here. And as always, when I'm reading these things, please excuse any mispronunciations I may have. A magnificent temple is a laudable monument of national taste and religion. and the enthusiast who entered the dome of St. Sophia might be tempted to suppose that it was the residence or even the workmanship of the deity. Yet how dull is the artifice, how insignificant is the labor, if it be compared with the formation of the vilest insect that crawls upon the surface of the temple. I really, I like Gibbon. I like him. He's absolutely right. If people would just take the fucking time to stop and look at a toad's eye or something, they wouldn't be so amazed by Saint Sophia, which apparently still stands. It's supposed to be a magnificent church. There's a story about an embassy that came from Kiev that was just instantly fell in love with the Christian faith just because they looked at Saint Sophia. And he brings up some weird stuff. Sometimes I have to stop and Google something. And the thing that he brought up was called the Rampart of Gog and Magog. And it took me down quite a rabbit hole when I Googled it, because this is supposed to be a wall, a defensive work, between the Black and the Caspian. And if you look at that on Google Maps, it looks like a fucking perfect place to build, because there's mountain chains there, and you have, of course, these inland seas. And it really reminded me of the board from, what the fuck's the name of that one game? Stratego. It reminds me of the board of Stratego. That's what it fucking looks like, if there was mountain chains between those two lakes. On and on about Belisarius, Justinian's general. Belisarius was quite brilliant, and you have to remember at that time, his troops were called Imperial or Roman, but they were Roman in name only. They were probably Greek and Scythians, and they used, everybody. They always had a troop of Huns. Okay, here we're Theodoric the Goth takes Italy, the Ostrogoth. Belisarius takes Italy back for Justinian. Vitiges, who I'm probably not pronouncing that right, besieges Belisarius in Rome. Vitiges, this is after Theodoric has passed away. Belisarius is victorious. Totila, which is another Goth, retakes Italy for the Goths, and again Belisarius is besieged inside Rome. Belisarius gets recalled to Constantinople. He kind of never gets his just deserts for all his victories, and he's constantly, they think that he's plotting to take the throne and everything. There's people behind the scenes that are whispering about Belisarius, Theodora. I go a long ways here without any notes. I go from page 277 to page 518. That's because all the fighting and the warfare is over with, and he gets into these fucking laws and codes and shit, and I just had to plow through that. After Totila takes Italy the last time, they send another Eastern Roman general, and his name is Narses, and Narses is a eunuch, and he's a pretty fucking brilliant general too. Cyril of Alexandria. And Alexandria was probably the only city where the mob was more insane than the mob was in Constantinople. And as I'm reading, they're talking about these Christian mobs murdering some other people. I'm thinking in my head, Jesus, this sounds an awful lot like what happened to Hypatia. And here it is on the next page, and I'm going to read it. Hypatia, the daughter of Theon, the mathematician, was initiated in her father's studies. Her learned comments have elucidated the geometry of Apollonius and Diophantus, and she publicly taught both at Athens and Alexandria, the philosophy of Plato and Aristotle. In the bloom of beauty and in the maturity of wisdom, the modest maid refused her lovers and instructed her disciples. The persons most illustrious for their rank or merit were impatient to visit the female philosopher, and Cyril beheld, with a jealous eye, the gorgeous train of horses and slaves who crowded the door of her academy. A rumor was spread among the Christians that the daughter of Theon was the only obstacle to the reconciliation of the prefect and the archbishop, and that obstacle was speedily removed. On a fatal day in the holy season of Lent, Hypatia was torn from her chariot, stripped naked, dragged to the church, and inhumanely butchered by the hands of Peter the Reader and a troop of savages and merciless fanatics. Her flesh was scraped from her bones with sharp oyster shells, and her quivering limbs were delivered to the flames. The just progress of inquiry and punishment was stopped by seasonable gifts, but the murder of Hypatia has imprinted an indelible stain on the character and religion of Cyril of Alexandria. And I also read another account of that where they didn't scrape her flesh with oyster shells, they did it with roofing tiles. Getting near the end of the book and just the endless arguments and synods of the Christians is just, it's insane. The Synod of Chalcedon, don't know whether I'm pronouncing that correctly. And here's my my note. And again, endless arguing, murder, pillaging, and burning all over the nature of Christ, and what words were appropriate to describe his nature. Lesser than nature. Yeah, and also they argued about the nature of Mary, the Mother of God. The Mother of God, you couldn't say that. And then here I have under the consulship. Let's see if I can find that. Did I put that on the right fucking page? Because I wanted to read this. Some guys here, his name is Timothy the Cat. Under the consulship of Venantius and Celer, says a grave bishop, the people of Alexandria and all Egypt were seized with a strange and diabolical frenzy. Great and small, slaves and freedmen, monks and clergy, the natives of the land who opposed the Synod of Chalcedon, lost their speech and reason, barked like dogs, and tore with their own teeth the flesh from their hands and arms. I guess all you had to do was write shit, and people would believe that it actually happened. And then here, I'm going to read a whole fucking page, so bear with me here. Get this out carefully. In the fever of the times, the sense, or rather the sound of a syllable, was sufficient to disturb the peace of an empire. The Trisagion, in parentheses it says, thrice holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, is supposed by the Greeks to be the identical hymn which the angels and cherubim eternally repeat before the throne of God, and which about the middle of the 5th century was miraculously revealed to the Church of Constantinople. Okay, so they said it was eternally repeated before the throne of God. I don't know about you, but holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, eternally repeated, would kind of get on my fucking nerves after a little while. You'd be praying for hell. The devotion of Antioch soon added, who was crucified for us. And this grateful address, either to Christ alone or to the whole Trinity, may be justified by the rules of theology and has been gradually adopted by the Catholics of the East and West. But it had been imagined by a monophysite bishop. The gift of an enemy was at first rejected as a dire and dangerous blasphemy, and the rash innovation had nearly cost the Emperor Anastasius his throne and his life. The people of Constantinople were devoid of any rational principles of freedom, but they held, as a lawful cause of rebellion, the color of a livery in the races, or the color of a mystery in the schools. The Trisagion, with and without this obnoxious addition, was chanted in the cathedral by two adverse choirs, and when their lungs were exhausted, they had recourse to the more solid arguments of sticks and stones. The aggressors were punished by the empire and defended by the patriarch, and the crown and mitre were staked on the event of this momentous quarrel. The streets were instantly crowded with innumerable swarms of men, women, and children. The legions of monks, in regular array, marched and shouted and fought at their head. Christians, this is the day of martyrdom. Let us not desert our spiritual father. Anathema to the Manichean tyrant. He is unworthy to reign. Such was the Catholic cry, and the galleys of Anastasius lay upon their oars before the palace, till the patriarch had pardoned his penitent and hushed the waves of the troubled multitude. The triumph of Macedonius was checked by a speedy exile, but the zeal of his flock was again exasperated by the same question, whether one of the Trinity has been crucified. On this momentous occasion, the blue and green factions of Constantinople suspended their discord. The blue and greens, much like the state of Michigan with our two college football teams, the blue and greens of Constantinople rooted for different chariot teams. And they came to blows and killed each other and all the time. The Nicarites. And the civil and military powers were annihilated in their presence. The keys of the city and the standards of the guards were deposited in the form of Constantine, the principal station and camp of the faithful. It goes on and on. I'm not going to finish reading that. People getting killed, people getting clubbed. And here's something I'm supposed to read. But in the creed of Justinian, the guilt of murder could not be applied to the slaughter of unbelievers, and he piously labored to establish, with fire and sword, the unity of the Christian faith. A lot of people on YouTube make a big deal about Muslims and whether a Muslim is able to kill a non-believer and be guilty of murder. But there it is, right there. The early Christians did the same fucking shit. And that's it. No more notes. I got another book for my birthday that I'm going to go to and try and finish fucking 17 minutes. All right, thank you.